I'm Jack Kennedy, and we're here to bring you the latest in MMA.
Hey everybody, my name's Hunter Boss, and what the boss says goes.
What is up everyone, my name is Keelan McNamara, and you already know what time it is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island Podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. Well, usually I say, let's get started with the news. We get into our news segment, then we go into our best of the best segment, from there on. Today, usually whenever we do the podcast, we do like one news thing per podcast. And sometimes the news isn't even really the news because we're just filling it in, right? But there was so much actual news that came out today that we're just devoting a whole episode to it. So you're going to get annoyed because we're just going to have the news playing over and over and over again. But here we go. Let's get started with the first of 4 news things that happened today. So much happened. Let's get kicked off with Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns. It's booked or not booked, but it's like almost booked. They both have agreed to it. There's Instagram DMs. Hunter, what do you think about this matchup?
I'm excited. I think Khamzat needs a step up in competition, and this is that step up. This is the closest to the champion you're going to get right now, Khamzat, and you cannot blow your opportunity here. Do I think Khamzat can win this? I do think so. I think Khamzat's insanely good, and I think he can rival a champion right now as he is. And if he's fighting Gilbert Burns, that's only going to give him more experience in the octagon and more time to be able to pick apart Kamaru Usman. So I'm really excited for this fight announcement. I can't wait for it to see the fight happen. And yeah.
Oh my, this is big. This is just insanity, ladies and gentlemen. Look, no one disagrees that Khamzat Chimaev needs to step up in competition. No one's going to argue that. But, Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, 9 or 10 in the top 10. This crazy mofo's going straight into the top 5. Gilbert Burns is a legitimate, solidified top 5 welterweight. He's just come off a 15-minute beatdown on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. This is a very, very dangerous fight for Khamzat, and yet I respect it so damn much. This has got all the makings of an absolutely crazy, crazy fight. The reports that I've seen indicate that both fighters are targeting April the 9th. This is the date that I've seen. Yep. I think you guys have seen it as well. And boy, oh boy, am I excited if that happens, because that is going to be one of the top welterweight fights of the year. Of that, I have no doubt at all. I can't even break the fight down right now because we're too far away from it, and it's just too fresh in the head. But God, is this an exciting fight. Khamzat is stepping up to the plate. He is stepping up to the major leagues, American League final. This is what he's doing here. And if he pulls this off, this is going to be really damn impressive. But one way or the other, I am beyond psyched for this fight.
It's good for your fantasy team too, by the way. Oh my goodness.
He's Gilbert Burns. What an explosive start for my draft team. I can't even tell you.
Well, and I'm telling you, man, like we started off the year and it was kind of back and forth about who was good, like was he going to get a title shot or not? And I think we all leaned on, well, maybe not this year. He beats Gilbert Burns. You have to give him a title shot. I think you have to give him a title shot, which means we get the dream matchup between Kamaru Usman and Khamzat Chimaev if he beats Gilbert Burns. Like, that is the fight that everybody wants to see. There was always a chance that they were going to overlap and never actually fight each other, but that fight's on the table now. Look, this fight is phenomenal. I really like it. Honestly, you could say match him up against Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, but I think those are just throwaway fights. I think Khamzat should just jump right up. He was scheduled to fight Leon Edwards. Gilbert Burns is as real as it gets at the top. His wrestling is phenomenal. He's just an overall great fighter. However, this is gonna be the test, right? This is the massive test, right? We keep saying it's a test for Khamzat every single time he fights. Now, this is the one. Can he take down Gilbert Burns, right? And I, more than anything in this fight, just more than skill sets, I'm interested in the mentality between Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev, because how is Gilbert Burns going to handle just facing a phenom that's coming up? a lot of guys that look, it's a crazy comparison to make, but honestly, it's not even that crazy anymore. Whenever Conor McGregor was fighting a lot of guys, he might not have been skill level like matched with them, but whenever he would fight them, like just the aura of who he is and just the phenom of who he is kind of overwhelms him a little bit. A guy like Khamzat Chimaev, who is that scary, who has taken 4 punches in his entire UFC career, that could be a little bit frightening to Gilbert Burns. And also, we're overlooking this whole thing because he's getting the shot, but Khamzat's ranked what, 11th in welterweight? So this is actually a massive risk for Gilbert Burns to take this fight. Massive. It's a big reward name-wise, but it's a big risk rankings-wise. So, look, I absolutely love it for Khamzat Chimaev. And if he wins this, oh my goodness, we're talking about a guy who has steamed his way through this welterweight division. I cannot wait for this fight. I hope it gets booked officially, but oh my goodness. And that was just how we got our day started off with the news. Let's keep it rolling now, right? The news part 2, Derek Lewis, Tai Tuivasa. Oh my goodness, what a heavyweight matchup. Hunter, what do you think?
I think I'm more excited for this fight than I am the Khamzat fight. Is that something like that? I don't know. But I love both of these fighters with like a passion, inside and outside of the octagon. Derek Lewis is always a class act. You know, he's rounding up the crowd, and Tai Tuivasa does the same thing. He's a crowd pleaser. They're both crowd pleasers, honestly. But here's the thing: this fight's taking place in Houston again, and last time Derek Lewis was in Houston, he froze. So we don't know if he's going to freeze again. He had a bunch of pressure leading into the fight, a bunch of pressure through the interviews. You could see it actually taking a toll on him physically and mentally. I think he didn't really throw that many punches in the whole Gone fight. I think he threw like 2 or 3, and it was the 3rd round TKO for Gone. So he was gun shy. Is that going to happen again against Tai Tuivasa? Maybe, but after that Chris Daukaus fight, I don't think it will. I think he's realized to himself, you know what? He was in his own head. As soon as he gets punched in the face once, and at least if it doesn't knock him out, I think he'll be ready to fight. Tai Tuivasa, though, on the other hand, this is a big step up in competition. We said this with the same thing with Chris Daukaus as we are with Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa has never faced anyone at this caliber in high rankings for heavyweight. This is going to be a huge test, you know, as we were talking about for Khamzat Chimaev. It's a huge test for Tai Tuivasa, too. Everyone loves Tai Tuivasa, but can he stand with the biggest and the baddest of the heavyweights? We will see. This is a fantastic fight, and I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah, this is such an exciting fight at heavyweight. First of all, on the note of Derek Lewis, going on Ariel Helwani and claiming you're a wrestler and Stipe Miocic is a wrestler is one of the most brilliant lines I have heard in the last 3 or 4 years. So well done to you, Derek. But yeah, this is a really, really good fight. And it's got very real long-term implications for the heavyweight division too, because Tai Tuivasa is very much one of the young guns of the division. He's a guy who's going to be a presence in it for at least the next 5 to 10 years, whereas Derek Lewis is approaching his sort of mid-30s period a little bit after that. And, you know, he doesn't have that much more time left to get a shot at the title. So Derek Lewis, he really has to make this count. I mean, I think there's less pressure on Tai Tuivasa for a couple of reasons. Hunter's mentioned one of them, and it is that Houston crowd, which is one of the biggest factors more than anything. I don't think Derek Lewis froze because the fight was in Houston against Cyril Gane. I think he froze because there was gold on the line, and I think that completely threw his head off entirely. I don't necessarily think the home crowd thing is an issue for Derek, but I think if you throw, I think Derek is kind of like a classic lovable slacker in a way, and I don't mean that the way that it sounds. Derek is brilliant when there's no real spotlight on it, when he's just able to go out and do his thing, and he's able to go out and do his game plan without anybody putting any importance on it. But the 2 times that he's really frozen have been when there's been something significant on the line. And that was against Daniel Cormier and against Cyril Gane. Both times he completely shut down and completely froze and pretty much got beaten up for the entire duration of the fight. So I don't think that's quite going to happen against Tai Tuivasa, but he's got to be on his A game. And I mean, he really has to bring his A game because Tai Tuivasa is fun and he's lovable and he's cool and everybody likes him. But Tai Tuivasa can throw hands. And if you don't come correct, Tai Tuivasa will make you correct very, very quickly. So that's why I'm so excited for this fight. Derek Lewis has momentum back again. He got that very, very good win against Chris Daukaus, which I'll admit I didn't think he would do. So credit to Derek. He got a very good win. And, Tai Tuivasa is coming off an incredible knockout against Augusto Sakai, who in himself is one of the most technical heavyweights out there right now. So this is going to be a really, really good meeting. And people don't sleep on this because the implications of this fight are much greater than you think they are.
Yeah, I mean, this fight is between two guys with so much power. It's going to be insane. We say this a lot of time for heavyweight fights, but they actually need to reinforce the octagon for this fight. It's going to be crazy. Two of the most powerful guys in the entire heavyweight division, which means two of the most powerful guys on earth. And then also two of the most fun-loving guys outside of the octagon going in there, two of the best personalities. I love everything about this fight, and I hate everything about this fight because someone's going to have to lose, right? But it's just going to be so fun. I'm already getting nervous thinking about whenever they actually go in there and just the tense, cagey start because one shot from either of them can put them out. This fight's different than Chris Daukaus because Chris Daukaus is a phenomenal fighter and will continue to climb the ranks at heavyweight, but he doesn't have power.
That's true.
Tai Tuivasa has so much power. We've seen it, and now he's finding his confidence. He's finding his personality. He is really coming up in this heavyweight division, Tai Tuivasa, and he is not afraid to swing. The problem with that is that plays right into what Derek Lewis wants because he has more power than, I would say only Ngannou has more power than Derek Lewis in the heavyweight division. So two of the most terrifying guys are just going to be standing right in front of each other and throwing. I think the leg kicks are going to be big for Tai Tuivasa. He likes to swing those things, and Derek Lewis takes a lot of leg kicks if you watch his fight. About the freezing up thing. So I agree with both. I think it's a split of both, which is why he froze up in Houston the last time out. And I think we also have to give a lot of credit to Cyril Gane as a reason he froze up too, because that's also a guy that doesn't stand right in front of you. That's a guy that picks you apart and then comes in to finish you. Tai Tuivasa is going to stand right in front of Derek Lewis. They're going to stand and trade. So I think that also, along with the fact that he knows the last time he fought in Houston in front of his hometown, he did not deliver, is going to motivate Derek Lewis to go out there and do the thing. And then I also do think it is a factor that he is not in the main event in this fight. So he's not going to have the pressure of the title fight. He's not going to have the pressure of the main event. He's not the only reason people are going there to watch the fights. So he's going to use all of that. He's going to go out there. He's going to throw. And he's going to look, I don't think either guy is going to hold back in this fight. And I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're sure someone is going to get knocked out in this fight. It's going to be amazing, and I cannot wait. I know I probably did right there, but forget it, all right? We're moving on. Believe it or not, we had more news on top of that. So news part 3, here we go. This one's a bit sad. However, a lot of conspiracy. This is conspiracy theory time, right? So this is where we, Max Holloway had to pull out of his fight against Alexander Volkanovski, re-injury. Very unfortunate. However, a couple people in the running, 3 or 4, who knows? Hunter, what do you make of this news, and who do you think is going to fight Alexander Volkanovski?
Oh, the conspiracy theory is true. You guys don't want me to win fantasy still, and that's why Max pulled out. I get it. But no, in all seriousness, I hate to see Max pull out of a fight because every time Max is in the fight, he puts on a show for everyone. But the rumors that's been swirling around this fight is very entertaining, especially for who's going to be the backup for Max in this fight. Is it going to be Triple C? Well, I've seen some rumors there. I hear that the next in line is actually supposed to be the Korean Zombie, which is a great matchup that anyone would like to see. But honestly, bottom line is Volkanovski always puts on an entertaining fight, so it doesn't matter who replaces because it's going to be a good fight either way.
Yeah,
Boom.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, the conspiracy theory army are out in full force. 10 hats are out for the first time of 2022.
That's right.
There's really no limit to where we can go with this. First of all, very sad news that Max Holloway's had to pull out. I mean, the guy never pulls out willingly, so We know that it's something serious if he can't fight, which is a shame. And I really hope he's okay. And whatever injuries reoccurred, I hope it gets better sooner, much rather than later. But this is where the interesting part comes in, because really the featherweight division, with the exception of Brian Ortega, has been Max and Volk for pretty much the last 2-3 years. That's been the entire narrative. And now a new contender has to step into the arena for the title. And this raises a lot of questions as to who it could be. Now, I would say about roughly, there's two people who I've heard a lot of rumors about. 50 to 60% of those are Triple C Henry Cejudo, which personally I can't see happening. And the reason I can't see this happening is A, it's at most 2 and at least 1 division up from where he held gold, and nobody is going to stand for him jumping 2 weight divisions to fight for a title in a division he's never even fought in. So I think it would be too controversial for Henry Cejudo to come back and fight for a title in a division that he's never fought in straight away. It wouldn't make any sense, especially if he somehow won the title. Where the hell do you go from there? So I don't think it's going to be Henry Cejudo. I'm sorry to burst the bubble. I just don't think it is. But this leads me to the other person, and this is why I think this option is much more interesting, because the other name that I've also heard, Hunter, is Chang Sung-young, the Korean zombie himself. And I think this is a much more believable opponent for Alexander Volkanovski. And I think it would be a hell of a fight. I really do. The Korean zombie has got dangerous Brazilian jiu-jitsu on the ground. His wrestling, his clinch game are all as solid as you could wish for. And it would be a real legitimate challenge for Alexander Volkanovski. Plus, the Korean zombie physically is very much like Max Holloway, albeit perhaps a little bit more bulky, but he's tall and he's long, and physically and logistically, that in itself presents a real challenge for Volkanovski, and whether he can physically keep that amount, that sort of mass on the ground. So personally, I hope it is the Korean zombie, because I mean, let's face it, the Korean zombie's been an OG of the game for at least a decade, if not more. And realistically, if you have to put someone in a title fight, who in that division is more deserving right now than Chang Sung-young? Personally, I can't think of that many people. So for me, if it is the Korean zombie, Alexander Volkanovski, I am here for that.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. Look, Henry Cejudo would be fun, I guess we could say. But here's the other thing too. I also want to look for what I think the best matchup would be, and from what I can think, you never know in MMA, but I really think, all due respect, but I think Alexander Volkanovski right now would torch Henry Cejudo. He's so much bigger than he is. The wrestling, obviously Henry Cejudo he was an Olympic for wrestling, right? But Volkanovski is exactly. So Henry Cejudo might have the edge in the wrestling, but could he actually implement that against Alexander Volkanovski? And would he want to do that against Alexander Volkanovski? Power goes to Volkanovski, speed goes to Volkanovski. Just how is Henry Cejudo going to look up there? Everything. Look, plus we're talking about who earned it, who deserves it. Korean Zombie just came off of a phenomenal win over Dan Ige. That is no tough opponent at all, and I thought Dan Ige was going to win that fight comfortably. So Korean Zombie, look, he's been in the game for so long. I think if anyone deserves it in that division, I would give it to Korean Zombie. And honestly, I mean, I still would favor Volkanovski heavily in that fight. However, I would like to see him do it. I think he would put a better fight. And the Korean Zombie is never out of a fight. Even when he lost to Brian Ortega that bad that one time, he was continuing fighting. He does not get finished unless it's a crazy, sneaky elbow from Yair Rodriguez. So, yeah. Honestly, another fighter I wouldn't hate. Now it'd be hard to justify, but Yair Rodriguez, and now he's probably still recovering, so he probably wouldn't be able to make it in time. But the way he performed against Max Holloway was very entertaining. So if they needed a last minute opponent and they didn't want to wait, I wouldn't hate that fight either. But anyways, let's talk about the last little piece of news here. Pay-per-views have increased $5, right? It was $69.99. Now it's $74.99. So yeah, about $5. Yet another pay-per-view increase. The question we're posing is the pay-per-view model going to be able to be used for future generations? What should they do? Hunter, what do you think about this price increase?
I'll try to keep it short. I don't like the price increase because more money is not fun, but it's going to be viable because UFC fans will stay fans, and those who will pay for the pay-per-view will not mind paying an extra $5, I think. But I did see an interesting statistic where it's over $1,000 to be a UFC fan now in 2022.
Wow.
Because you have to pay for the UFC Fight Pass, you have to pay for ESPN Plus subscription, and you have to pay for every single pay-per-view of the year. It's over $1,000 leads up to be. So, I mean, it's not viable for long term, but it'll work for the next 5 years, I think.
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting topic for many, 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 many reasons. And for me, when we talk about the great issues of the day in relation to modern mixed martial arts, it's up there with fighter pay, it's up there with Dana White, and it's up there with all those other various issues. Now, there's two very clear sides you can come at this argument from. You can come at it from the argument of, which I don't disagree with at all. Let me make that very clear from the outset. You can come at it from the argument of it's disgraceful. Being a lifelong fan of combat sports should not cost you over $1,000 a year to be a fan of. And I absolutely agree with that. And I do accept that fully. And if we look at the state of the UFC right now, with them being a publicly traded company now and all this kind of business, prices are going to go up because the board have people to answer to. They have increased costs, increased revenues, and all this kind of stuff. And even when we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, which again, God willing, may it be over much sooner rather than later, things have gotten more expensive to put on. There's keeping people safe, there's testing prices, all this various kind of stuff. Again, I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm just saying that is perhaps part of the reason. But there's another side of this that I would like to come from, strictly to play devil's advocate and nothing more. And I've actually got to thank my very good friend, Darnell Giovanni, Mr. Black, shout out the man for himself for providing this argument, because it is a very fair argument and not many people are going to like to hear it. People love bringing in boxing to bring down MMA in relation to issues like fighter pay and how fighters are treated and all this kind of stuff. But consider the quality of a UFC pay-per-view card compared to a boxing pay-per-view card. Like, for example, I'll just take the most recent big pay-per-view that I can think of. If we look at Saul Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant for the undisputed super middleweight title of the world, does anybody know any other fighter who was on the undercard or the prelim of that card? Exactly. Nope. Nobody does. Not even the fighters who were on the prelims knew who they were. That's just how anonymous it was. Now, if we look at, we spoke about how 2021 was the best year to be a mixed martial arts fan and how they had the best fights, arguably, of any year the UFC has ever been around. Now, that does add a lot of value to being a mixed martial arts fan because nearly every single live card was a banger last year. There were one or two duds here and there. I'm certainly not going to try and defend that because some of our fighters that perhaps we're not the biggest fans of featured on them. But if you look at the pay-per-view cards and you look at the fights that were on them, I mean, we had 3 or 4 fights last year alone that are Hall of Fame fights.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the fighters who hold gold right now, who could dominate their divisions for as long as they could, or as long as they can, look at bantamweight, best it's ever been. Featherweight, best it's been since 2015, I would argue by far. Lightweight is loaded. Welterweight, loaded. Middleweight, thinned out a little, but getting back there.
It's getting better.
Yeah, light heavyweight's going through a rejuvenation right now with John Jones and all that kind of business. And heavyweight's relatively decent too. So what you have to do is that, look, no one likes price increases, and I'm not defending price increases. Do I think being an MMA fan could be cheaper and more accessible for many people? Yes, I absolutely do. And I am not arguing to the contrary because, especially working families, people of the working classes and the lower middle classes, access should never be cut off from being a fan. Like, Jack, as a football soccer fan, you'll know about this issue as well, because it feeds into football too, and how it's so expensive to be a fan of what you love. Now, I'm not defending the prices going up, but what I will ask you to consider is whether every fight card you watch and the knockouts and the submissions and how they make you feel, do you feel like you've gotten your money's worth from 2021 and 2020 and 2019? Because if you can put your hand on your heart and say, I got more than my money's value worth with the fights that I saw and the knockouts and the submissions and the performances, then it's kind of hard to argue against the price rise. I mean, commodities go up and down according to their value and the excitement and the actual worth. Now, I will add a caveat to this because I think it's very important to mention this. I know I've gone on a little bit, but I try to be as in-depth as I can. This price increase is obviously $5 a month more for my American friends across the water and beyond. If that price increase goes into improved fighter pay, then I will defend it fully, because I don't think there's an excuse not to help fighters out a little bit more. Because again, look, I'm not going to get into the whole debate because it's too damn long and we don't have a lot of time to say this. But if that money went into a fund to give fighters a little bit more money, because they're the ones producing the value and bringing it weekend after weekend after weekend, if that money goes into improving fighter pay and giving them a better paycheck after every fight, then I'll defend it pretty vigorously, because then I think it would work for everyone. Fighters are getting a little bit more security, so they're going to go out more confident to put on better fights, knowing that they'll be looked after better. So if that caveat were there, then I would be defending it much more fully than I am.
Yeah, I was looking at stuff. I don't know if it's official or not, but I haven't seen anything to where it's helping fighter pay. Now, however, I will say this, Keelan, you should work for the UFC. That was a phenomenal defense of raising the pay-per-view price. All right, as a fan, I'm a bit disappointed.
I kind of hate myself now. I'm sorry.
I mean, you should be a corporate overlord talking like that. I mean, look,
Jeff Nowitzki.
look. I don't like it because it's more money that you have to pay for every pay-per-view and stuff like that. But look, that's a phenomenal point that you made right there, because it's like, oh my goodness, did you get your money's worth? That's the thing. Because UFC, I mean, I was just thinking about that. Boxing, you can count on your hands how many great fights there were. With the UFC, like it's like the internet, it's insane. It's crazy. There's so many fights that you saw. Okay, here's where I stand on this. I think the UFC, MMA in general, should go on to network TV like football. We had a whole conspiracy thing like that. I think the numbers would be there. I think if they switch and just put more advertising, the profits would be there as well. However, they're stuck on the model where they're going to. So that is the reality that we live in. So with that, I guess I understand the price increase. However, I also don't think it will. I don't know if we're going to stick with this. I think it might come back down. There has been a trend where it started with pay-per-views were like $40 and then it's increased steadily throughout, forever. I think with this though, I don't know why. I just get a feeling this will actually impact pay-per-view sales, and I think they will go down. I really think so, because you're verging on $80 here. I really think that just seeing that number will turn a lot of people away for pay-per-views that they may have gotten before. I really think we might see a year, maybe two of this, and then it'll go back down. I guess I understand it maybe a little bit, but not really. Honestly, I think they had a great thing going. The pay-per-view numbers were some of the best, if not the best, in UFC history. Were they the best in UFC history? I don't know. It was, they did like 8.5.
They were very close.
They did 8.5 million pay-per-view buys in total this year, which is phenomenal. So, look, they have a great thing going. I say keep it where it is. I really don't know where you got to mess with it. We're not in the UFC. We don't know what's going on. So you deal with what you've been given. Personally, what I'd like to see is the network TV, or hey, a little compromise here, right? We have to pay for ESPN Plus to see the pay-per-views, right? Give us a discounted price. You can make pay-per-view $75 for people who don't have ESPN Plus, but for people who do have ESPN Plus, make it like $55 or something like that. Like drastically decrease it for having your other services rather than full price for every single one of your services, because there's no incentive right now to have everything. Like personally, like, I don't see the point of really having UFC Fight Pass right now. I mean, yes, they have a great fight library, but ESPN Plus is where you're going to watch all of the live fights, including the early prelims, which are on ESPN Plus now too. You got to give UFC fans, you got to give us some incentive to use that stuff, and especially pay-per-views. I think, if you have this will be a lot lower. I don't know. I think that's what they should lean towards, but it is what it is. Lots of news to cover today. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Loved it. As always, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Listen to us everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Follow us on Instagram at MMA.island and check out our website, MMAisland.net. Again, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Great podcast, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.